Welcome to my channel. Today I'm taking you on a journey far back into the chaotic birth of a nation that would one day be known as France. But in its earliest years, it was a place of blood, destiny, tragedy, and survival. This is the story of how France first encountered life and death struggles, the story of its first brutal shocks, the first betrayals, the first wars, and the first moments when fate itself seemed to test the very soul of the French people. Long before the world spoke the name France, this land was called Gaul. It was not a country, but a wild mosaic of tribes, the Celts, the Gauls, the Belgi, and the fierce mountain clans. They lived in forests, plains, and river valleys, each tribe with its own leader, its own pride, and its own rivalries. For centuries, these tribes fought among themselves. But they did not know that soon a storm was coming, greater than anything they had ever faced. A storm that would change their destiny forever. It began in the year 58 BCE, when a power unlike anything Gaul had ever seen turned its eyes toward their land. The Romans, led by one of the most ambitious generals in history, Julius Caesar. Caesar believed Gaul was the door he needed to open to become the most powerful man in Rome, and for that, he needed a war. He needed victories, needed blood. The Gauls, unaware of Caesar's true plans, were already in turmoil. A tribe called the Helvetii decided to migrate across Gaul in search of a new land, but their movement terrified other tribes. Chaos spread, disputes broke out, and in that confusion, Caesar marched in with his legion's armies, trained with discipline the Gauls had never imagined. The Gauls expected negotiation. What they faced instead was the beginning of the First Great War on French soil. The first battles were devastating. The Roman legions fought like a machine, shields locked, formations tight, iron discipline in every line. The Gauls fought with passion, strength, and bravery, but their tribes lacked unity. One tribe fought while another watched. Rivals refused to help rivals. And Caesar used every weakness, every division, every hesitation. One by one, the tribes fell. But history changed when one young man rose. His name was Vercingetorix, a noble from the Arverni people. His father had been killed years earlier for trying to unite Gaul, but the idea lived in the heart of his son. And as Caesar marched deeper and deeper into Gaul, burning villages, capturing chiefs, slaving survivors, something awakened in Vercingetorix. He realized that the tribes could survive only if they stood together. So he did the impossible. He united them. War drums echoed across forests and mountains. Torches lit the night as messengers rode from tribe to tribe, carrying his call for unity. For the first time in their history, the Gauls stood together as one nation. It was that first moment that France, though not yet called France, breathed with a single heart. Vercingetorix changed everything. He used a new strategy: scorched earth. He ordered his people to burn their own crops, destroy their own villages, deny the Romans food and shelter. It was a brutal sacrifice, but it was necessary. Caesar's legions began to starve, threatened them. For the first time, the Romans felt fear. But destiny has its own way of testing great leaders. One of the greatest tragedies came when the town of Avaricum pleaded to be spared from destruction. It was beautiful, well built, a place the Gauls were proud of. Vercingetorix wanted to burn it like all the others, but the people begged him to save it. Against his better judgment, he agreed. Caesar attacked. For 27 days the Gauls fought, but the defenses eventually broke. What followed was one of the darkest moments in early French history. Caesar ordered a massacre. Out of 40,000 inhabitants, only about 800 survived. The city burned while Roman soldiers carved down men, women, and children. It was the first overwhelming shock that told the Gauls what they were truly facing: a relentless empire. The war raged on. Battles turned rivers red. Winter storms froze fighters where they stood. Gaul was bleeding, but it kept resisting. Vercingetorix became a symbol of warrior who carried the fate of a nation on his shoulders. Caesar knew that as long as this young king lived, he could not truly conquer Gaul, Asterisk, everything led to the final battle at Alesia, one of the greatest sieges in human history. Asterisk, Vercingetorix and his people were trapped on a hill fort, surrounded by Caesar's legions. To prevent rescue, Caesar built two massive walls, one to keep the Gauls trapped inside, and another to defend from Gaulish reinforcements struggling to break through. It was an engineering miracle, a cage of wood, stone, and iron. Inside Alesia, food ran out. Horses died first, then hunger reached the women and children. Some were forced to leave the fort, but the Romans refused to let them pass. Many died between the two walls. Still, the Gauls fought. Every dawn brought another assault. Every night, arrows rained like storms. The earth shook with war cries, catapults, shields clashing, spears cracking. The reinforcements attacked Caesar's army from outside, while Vercingetorix charged from inside in a last desperate attempt to break the Roman lines. But destiny chose a different ending. The Gauls were defeated, exhausted, starving, surrounded on all sides. Vercingetorix, knowing thousands more would die if he kept fighting, did something that turned him into a legend. He rode down the hill on his horse, entered Caesar's camp, and surrendered himself. Not as a coward, as a king protecting his people. Asterisk, he dismounted, threw his weapons at Caesar's feet, and accepted his fate. It was the first great heartbreak. Of the French story, a leader giving up his freedom so that his people might survive. Asterisk, the Romans took him in chains. For 6 long years he remained a prisoner, until the day Caesar marched him through Rome in a victory parade. When the parade ended, Vercingetorix was quietly executed. But his death did not silence him. His sacrifice planted a seed in the heart of Gaul, a belief that one day they would rise again, not as tribes, but as a nation. Asterisk, Rome conquered Gaul, but it also transformed it. Roads were built, cities rose, markets, theaters, forums, and baths appeared, Latin mixed with local dialects, cultures blended. Over centuries, Gaul evolved into a new identity, one that would eventually become medieval France. But the tragedies were not over. When the Roman Empire weakened, new invasions came. Germanic tribes crossed the borders: Franks, Visigoths, Burgundians. Among them, one tribe would shape the future most, the Franks. Led by a young and ruthless warlord named Clovis, the Franks swept through the land. Clovis fought rivals, united his people, and eventually created the foundations of the French kingdom. The very name France comes from his people, the Franks. Asterisk, but even this rise came through violence, betrayal, and destiny. Asterisk, Clovis used cunning politics, strategic marriages, and brutal warfare to defeat his enemies. In one battle, nearly all his rivals were slaughtered. In another, he promised God he would convert to Christianity if he wouldn't have. He did win. His baptism became a turning point. It marked the beginning of France as a Christian kingdom, shaping 1,000 years of its history. Asterisk, but the soul of the land, the courage of the people, and the memory of Vercingetorix lived on. Every time France faced war, invasion, or tragedy, his story returned a reminder of unity, sacrifice, and the price of freedom. Asterisk, from Caesar's conquest to the rise of the Franks. From burned cities to legendary kings, from the blood of the tribes to the birth of a nation, France's early years were shaped by fate itself, hard, cruel, unforgiving, yet through every shock, every loss, every death, something stronger was being forged. A nation that refused to disappear. People who learned to rise again. Asterisk, and a destiny that would one day make France one of the most powerful kingdoms in Europe. Asterisk, this was the beginning, the first struggle, the first heartbreak. Asterisk, the first moment when France faced death and discovered who it truly was. Asterisk, and this is why the story of ancient Gaul is not just a part of France's past, it is the fire that shaped its identity. A fire born in war, in tragedy, and in the courage of a people who refused to surrender their spirit. Asterisk, if you want more stories like this, stories of wars, heroes, and powerful histories, don't forget to subscribe. And until the next journey, stay curious, stay brave. Asterisk.